Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Armed and Legally Dangerous with Chayla Jackson, myself, the Purpose Police. Look, this is our community pop-up training. And in this training, we are going to discuss copyright transfers. Look, copyright transfers. This is critical that you understand this because this is the key to really securing your copyrights. So first and foremost, armed and legally dangerous is mandated to cultivate and produce weaponized kingdom CEOs to protect and build the business God has assigned to them through legal knowledge, strategy, and skills, both in business and spiritually. And so we are in our Prepare for War series, and understanding copyrights education is how you prepare for war. And so if you are not a part of our community and you are a kingdom CEO, you are a citizen of the kingdom of God who has been called and chosen to partner with God, partner with his Holy Spirit to transact kingdom business in the earth, but also carry out his purpose through business. I'm talking about the kingdom CEOs. You were called and chosen. Your business is an assignment. I'm talking about those that you know his business precedes your business. And even in your business, it's still his business. If you want to be armed and legally dangerous, oh, you want to know what you're doing, then I invite you to join us in our free community at onedangerousceo.com. All you have to do is click sign up to join our community. It's free to join the community. The legal membership is paid. That's where we actually train you in skill development. So we don't just give you tonight, this is a part of our community training. It's not how we do legal training, legal membership training. But if you want to learn more, just sign up for our community and more information will be forthcoming. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out. All right. All right. So we're talking about copyright transfers. Now, before we get into actually understanding the transfer, I need to lay the foundation with copyrights because you need to understand copyrights and copyright ownership before we can get into actually understanding transfers, because then it's going to make sense and it's going to connect. So first and foremost, understand that copyrights are a type of intellectual property. So my definition of intellectual property is that intellectual property is the real estate of the mind. Just like what you can do with real estate, a house, you can also do with intellectual property. And so you can own intellectual property, you can sell intellectual property, you can rent intellectual property, such as leasing it out. You can also borrow intellectual property, meaning you're leasing, you're borrowing, but it belongs to someone else. So think about that. Anytime that we're dealing with renting or leasing, licensing, it's almost like having a tenant in a house. The tenant doesn't own it, but they have legal rights to be in that house. You can always evict the tenant depending on what the contract says or the law. But when you own it, that is your name is on the deed, it's on the title. You own it. Nobody can just take your rights. Okay. So when we talk about copyrights, intellectual property, we want to make sure that as God releases those ideas to us and as we walk it out, that we are securing our copyrights because we understand how important it is. Now, I'm not talking about registration right now. I'm not talking about securing it through registration. I'm talking about securing it because you need to understand what we're going to talk about. Because under copyright law, the moment that a creative work created by an author, a human author, is fixed in a tangible medium of expression, copyright protection automatically applies. What do I mean by that? So usually I use this example. When I am recording live, it is streaming live. This is a creative work. It's original. It falls under copyright. It's a video. There will be an audio version as well. Any text that come out, it is falls under a work that could be copyrighted. Now, when it is streaming, When it is still in motion, it's not fixed. It has to be fixed. So right now, there's no copyright protection to the video. But the moment I hit in, the moment the recording goes into the MP4 and the MP3 file formats, copyright protection automatically applies, even if I do not register it. So you have a copyright before you do a copyright registration. Copyright registration doesn't give you copyrights. Copyright registration is just the proof you already had the copyright. You just decided to make it official, okay? And there are benefits to that. So another example of copyright, books. Books fall under copyright law. Pictures, your brand photos, brand videos, your website, social media posts, social media content, newsletters, audio trainings, your courses, your slides, your speaker notes, all of that falls under copyright law. Now, I'm not getting into whether you can copyright that or not. We did a training a couple of months ago on copyright this, trademark that, that broke that a little bit down a little bit further. But tonight I'm focusing on copyright transfers for this training. So why is this important? Copyright law says this: whoever the original creator is owns the work. Whoever the original creator is owns the work. What does that mean, Chayla? That means that if I have my daughter take a photo of me, she's the copyright owner, not me. Even if she uses my phone, she's the copyright owner, not me. If I hire someone to take brand photos for me and we sign a contract, but the contract doesn't have any language on it about who owns the photos, the photographer is still the copyright owner, not me. And here is what you have to understand. Under copyright law, if you use it without permission, it's copyright infringement. It's strict liability. This is not grade school. This is not high school where you could borrow a photo and use it for your report, because that was for educational purposes. In business, we're here to make money. Yes, to fulfill his purpose, but we're here to profit as well. And so when you're using it for commercial purposes, you cannot just use somebody else's work without permission, or you can get hit for copyright infringement. It's if you do it, you're guilty of it. There's no excuse, okay? Now, the reason why I say that is because, do you own your brand photos? Do you own the videos? Do you own the work that someone has created for you? If somebody created it for you and they are not a W-2 employee, baby, you don't own those copyrights. So how do we secure the copyrights? Well, first you have to understand copyright transfer. So if the copyright is with the original owner, this is the person, they created it. Let me give it a second now so it look a little bit. They created it. That means you, look at some help. That means you don't own it. So they still own the copyright. Let me give it a little book. They still own the copyright. You paid them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They said they would give you the copyright. It don't matter. It don't matter. Because the only way that you can transfer ownership of a copyright from one person to another is with a contract. That is the only way you can transfer the copyrights. The only way, permanently, if you want to own it. So if you don't own it, you have to go get a contract to be able to own the rights to what God has given you, what you created. Now, here is the thing. If you have an LLC or corporation and you're creating things for the business, does your business own it? Or do you have a... See, if you're not a W-2 employee of your business, you still own the copyright, not the business. Now, in the eyes of the law, your business is a person. So if you hear me talking about persons, your business is a person. And so you have to, again, understand who created the copyright and who owns it. Those are two different questions. Someone can create it, but somebody can have the ownership rights. Why? Because it says so in the contract. This is how you can create a book, but the publisher owns the rights because you gave the rights away in a contract. So, what does that mean for us? Well, that means that in order for us to secure our copyrights when we're doing work with other people, anytime we're creating something, anytime we want to own something that is a created work, it falls under copyright law. We have to have a contract to give us those rights if we did not create it ourselves. But we have to know who is the copyright owner, not just the creator, the owner who owns it. Because people will say, well, I own the copyright, and that's not true. You have to be able to trace the copyrights, especially if you are doing licensing. If you don't understand how to trace the copyrights, you're going to mess up when it comes to the license. So let me explain this so you understand. There are two types of transfers. There are two types of transfers. Now, when I say transfer, I want you to think about public transportation. Anytime we're talking about a transfer, there's movement. That means the copyright is moving, the copyright is moving, the copyright is moving. It's changing hands in some capacity. It's moving, it's not staying still. See, when you own it, it stays still. When you're trying to move it, a transfer, it's moving. It's moving. And the question is, are we moving the copyrights permanently, meaning it's getting a new home, a new owner, or are we moving it temporarily, like a renter in a house, meaning you're going to get to use it, but you still don't own it? You, you, those are two types of transfers. So if you want to give away the right permanently, or you want to receive the copyright permanently, that's a permanent transfer. That is what we call an assignment. It's being assigned. It's an assignment. But if you want the rights to go temporarily, meaning I don't want you to own it, I just want you to be able to use it. Vice versa. If you don't want to own it, you just want to be able to use it, then that type of transfer temporarily is called a license. A license. If you want to own it, it's an assignment type of transfer. If you want to just use it, but you don't want to change ownership, it is a license. It's like a lease. So, all right, you understand that? Two types of transfers. Permanent assignment. That's like selling your house. That house don't belong to you anymore. You gave it away. So if you see a transfer, woo, 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 you might be giving up ownership. Pay attention. Temporary transfers means you put a tenant in there, but you still have the rights to that house. It's still yours. They just get to use it temporarily. And how they use it for how long depends on the license you grant. That is a type of transfer as well. Anytime you see transfer, it just means the rights are moving. The question is, how is the right moving? Is it a permanent transfer, an assignment, or is temporary a license, meaning you can get it back? All right. I hope you got that. You got that? All right, cool. So now here is here is what you need to understand. Okay. So remember, I said that just because you own your business, your LLC corporation. I'm not talking about sole proprietorships. I'm talking about LLCs, corporations. Just because you have a LLC or corporation does not mean your business owns the intellectual property. So the same is true vice versa. You hire a photographer. The photographer has a LLC. The photographer does not have a contract with their LLC. The photographer is not a W-2 employee of the LLC. Remember, this is how you get the copyrights. You want to own your photos. You don't want to have a lease. You want to own it. So they can't just do whatever with it. The question is, where is ownership going to go? Do you want it to go to you as an individual or to your LLC corporation, your business? So first we have to identify, where is it going? Who is going to own the right, yourself or your business? If your business is going to own the right, this is where you can mess up, because you have been taught, and I know I have said it as well, do not put your personal name at the top of a business contract ever. But there is an exception, and this is the exception. If you want your business to own the copyrights that your photographer took. Remember, your photographer is not a W-2 employee, and they do not have a contract with their business saying the business owns the copyrights. So if your transfer of the copyright was just between the business and your business, the business never owned the copyright. You did a transfer, you thought you were doing everything right, but the business doesn't own the copyrights. How can you give something away that you don't own? That means you have a void transfer. Your contract can be legit, meaning it's legally enforceable, because you can have a contract that's not enforceable. It's not a contract, it falls apart. But that's not this teaching today. If you mess this up, you tried to do it right, but you got it wrong. You didn't transfer any copyrights, because the copyright holder is still the photographer, because they didn't have their stuff together. So when you're trying to get the copyrights from the photographer, or you can substitute whoever the photographer is, and they have an LLC, you want to make sure you get it from both. Both. Now, how do you do this in a contract? Whew. How do you do this in contract? Well, if the contract is for all services, then you want to, of course, you want your business name at the top. You want their business name at the top, because they are the main person in the business. But when you get to the intellectual property, when you get to that, this is how you can do it. You may want to add a schedule to the back, like an addendum to the back of the contract, that puts both their name, the business name, and the individual name, to transfer all of the copyrights to your business, and have them sign it twice. Have them sign it on behalf of the business, because they're the CEO of the business, and then have them sign it in their individual capacity. This is how you can avoid void transfers, because you're not going to know if they have a contract in place or they're a W-2 employee. And here's the thing, if they're using someone else to help them create the work, you want them to assign the copyrights from everyone doing work for you to your business, if that's who you want to own it. So I hope you're understanding this. If you want to own the copyrights, it's best to cover the individual and the business. If you're trying to give the copyrights to your own business, you can do it in your LLC operating agreement. You can also do it in your corporation agreement. You can also do it with a separate intellectual property assignment agreement, or a copyright assignment agreement. You can also use a transfer agreement. Remember, transfer just means it's moving, but you want to make sure it has an assignment in it, because that's a permanent transfer. And so with your business, you can do that, because you may want your business to own it. Just understand that if your business owns it, it is the intellectual property of the business and not you. And just like real estate that can be passed on, so can copyrights. It can be inherited and passed on. So you got to see the whole picture. But for tonight, I can't give you everything. We got to understand copyright transfer, so we can truly own the creative ideas that God gives us. Because if not, you can end up putting a business to business, and they never own the contract, which means you don't own any rights. The rights are still with the original person, right? Remember, creator, owner, you. If you don't do it correctly, you never transferred the rights. It stayed with the original person, the original creator, and the original owner. All right. So this is our community pop-up training. When you are live, when you come into the room live, you can ask your questions and I'll answer them. And if you couldn't make it live because it's a pop-up training, it happens. The replay will be on our YouTube channel at One Dangerous CEO. So make sure you go subscribe to our YouTube channel for Armed and Legally Dangerous. And for those of you who are like, you know what, this is good. I need to get in the room. What else am I missing? What are my blind spots legally? I need to learn. I need to be equipped. I'm ready. And you're a Kingdom CEO, then join our free Armed and Legally Dangerous community over at onedangerousceo.com. And you can also join the community by checking out our resources in the armor. We store our weapons in the armory because that's where they belong. And you can, if you check out any of our weapons, you'll automatically be added to our community. And if you go to the events page to check out some of our previous events that are still available, some of the replays are, or you can still take some of our events like the Fortify Challenge or the 8 days, 8 mountains fast. You can do that on the events page. That's all available to you at onedangerousceo.com. But make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's all. I am Chayla Jackson, the Purpose Police, here to serve, and protect Kingdom CEOs so that you are armed and legally dangerous to protect his business and your business too. This is our community pop-up training. That is all. Make sure you subscribe and join us in the community. We would love to have you, Kingdom CEOs.